we can create safety for ourselves when we work on our identity and we know who we are in Christ. We can create, so that's the baseline. Like, you got to get that down before you can do anything else. Everybody's focused on, I need to change my husband, or I need to change my wife. Their behavior is XYZ. Yeah, no, stop looking at that. Look at yourself, right? So once you get your identity solid, then you can level up into being protective for the relationship. You can have enough knowledge of what's good in a relationship, and then you can put boundaries in the relationship. So you have boundaries on yourself first. You know your identity. That's all part of that work. And then you can put boundaries out there around the relationship of what is and isn't good in the relationship for the now that it's in. And so that's not putting a boundary on your spouse. That's saying what you will and won't participate in, because boundaries are for us, and they're safety equipment, if you will.
Welcome to another episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. I'm Shai, and I'm here with Nina. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connection so you can have a thriving marriage. Today, we are discussing what to say when you need safety in your relationship. I'm so glad we're talking about this today, because I think this is something that awareness is increasing around in just our conversations around what it means to be healthy in a relationship. I think that, for me at least, having the vocabulary to express the need for something like this wasn't necessarily around, before the last 10 years. And so now that it's around, we're talking about it. We're talking about what it looks like, different levels of what this looks like for each person, how it shows up in our relationships. So welcome, Nina. How are you?
Hey, I'm better now, seeing your bright, shining face. This is awesome. Great topic today, by the way.
So safety. We know that safety can be different things. It can be emotional safety. It can be physical safety. It can mean financial safety. We want to talk about today what to say when those things aren't present in our relationships. Do you have any experience with feeling unsafe or noticing when someone in your relationship doesn't feel safe?
Oh, man. Like, yes. So, and, as recently as being on a horse today and him trying to find his feet. And I thought, oh, am I coming off? That's one kind of safety where I'm not safe here. It all went well, by the way, but that's not what we're talking about today. That wasn't a relationship issue. When you're talking about safety in a relationship, we need to define what that word actually means. And I think it's reflective of trust, meaning I know I'm safe here is the same thing as saying, hey, I trust you here. We have a track record of trust in this space. So that track record of trust then creates safety. And there's ways to go about creating that when it's missing. And there's ways to facilitate understanding around the lack of it. So physical safety is definitely an escalation, or, that unsafety is an escalation of emotional, a lack of safety there, a lack of trust, a lack of good behavior, right, over time. So talking about this today, I think is going to impact couples. It's a huge issue in most relationships, whether we use the language or not. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get into that. We're going to help our listeners know what to say, get some scripting around that when there is a lack of safety in the relationship. But before we do that, we want to send you to our website, greaterimpact.org, where you can download a free PDF. It's about how to stop walking on eggshells, and we think it'll help you out. So check us out in your free time. And let's continue this conversation. So if you don't do this well, you can miss an opportunity to build trust and connection in your relationship. So let's get into this topic. All right, so I was watching a video the other day where it was a sermon by a famous preacher, T.D. Jakes. Most of us know who he is. He was talking about men and safety. I think he wrote a book years and years ago called He Motions or something like that. And one of the things he mentioned was how sometimes men will withdraw. Mm-hmm. And it's a reaction to not feeling safe in talking about things that, you know, they may have very vulnerable places, very private things that they just aren't quite sure they can share with their wives or the women in their lives. And I know for us as women, that's sometimes the thing that we want most, is we want that vulnerability, mm-hmm. and we want to know their deepest secrets, and that's how we connect with each other. So we want to connect with them in that way. And I don't know that we always know that's what's happening. And so I want to talk about what's underneath that, and why is that so hard for us to become aware of the fact that there's just a lack of safety there. It's not personal. It's not that you did anything wrong necessarily. It's just safety needs to be built, maybe, mm-hmm. or it's been broken, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the at the core of that often is a lack of boundaries for ourselves, for the relationship. So people that feel the least safe and are most insecure or most scared, if you will, and that shows up in controlling behavior, arrogant behavior, aggression, and that's male or female. Like, ask any man who's seen the ugly side of his wife, which is most married men have seen it, right? We're scary when we're angry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we come across as the mom that he had that was chewing him out when he was 7 years old for XYZ, right? So it's terrifying. And what's underneath that is a childhood fear. And here we are acting ugly like that. And they do the same thing to us, you know, who will wait till your dad comes home, you know? So you have this level of fear that's inherently present. And then the way to create safety in the relationship is, first of all, I need to clean up my own side of the street. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to have a boundary for my own mouth, which is I'm not going to say things when I'm emotional. And, you know, stonewalling is definitely one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, according to John Gottman. He's a psychiatrist out of the University of Washington. And it's an indicative element in people that divorce, marriages that are disasters. It's also predominantly men that will do that stonewalling thing. They'll walk away from a conversation because they get overwhelmed, they get flooded, which is a elevation of biological factors. Your heart rate increases, your breath speeds up, you're shallow breathing, you're not getting oxygen to the brain. And so they don't know what to do, how to handle the conflict that's playing out in front of them. So they just shut down and leave it. And honestly, I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, while it is not useful to end a conversation that way, it's also kind of protective, because mm-hmm. if they don't know what to do and they're forced to continue this, like in most of the domestic violence situations that I've worked with, the reason the woman got hit was because she chased her husband down and kept going when he was like, I can't talk about this right now. And she's like, oh, you're going to talk about this. And, you know, just went after him. And then he turns around and pushes her. And that's really, really common. You know, that's where that kind of thing starts. And now that's on the landscape. And now she's afraid. And now there's this whole element of extremely unsafe behavior, you know, that could have been prevented if people had learned, here's how grownups do difficult conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think about that scenario, I see two people that feel unsafe, but nobody's saying I feel unsafe. Everybody's sort of responding in an unsafe
Yes.
which is crazy.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's no joke. Like she feels in this, and it could be the roles reversed, right? Because women actually will push and hit their husbands too. I mean, this happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't get as reported, but it does occur. And so she's feeling in this situation we just described, she's feeling abandoned. That feels unsafe, right? So that vernacular is being wrapped around that situation. He's walking away. Like it's the antithesis of safety, right? Or unsafe. Like he's not doing anything to her in that moment, but she still feels that way. And this is one of the points that I make to couples is just because your partner says they don't feel safe doesn't mean that you are physically abusive or even emotionally abusive.
Right.
You know, just because somebody has that experience doesn't make you a perpetrator.
Right.
So there are, you know, ask yourself the question, am I calling people names? That's abusive. Am I telling people who they are and it's negative? You're this, you're that, you always, you never. That's abusive. Am I labeling their entire person? You know, you're lazy, you're this way and you're never going to change, you know. Those things are damaging to, and you're always going to be like this. Like, why is it it's always your fault. Like you never listen. Like nobody always never does anything.
Right.
But those are verbal behaviors that are damaging to other people.
Right.
And having said that, if you have a strong enough sense of identity, they're not damaging to you. It's no different than me saying, Shy, I've been looking at you for a while and I've decided that you're actually a llama. Like you would hear that from me and you'd look at me and be like, wow, what have you been drinking? Like, no, are you serious? You wouldn't even consider that is true because that's not your identity at all.
Right.
And so what if I called you a llama? You're going to go, yeah, there's something not right with her, man. Like, but you're not going to take that on. So when we're strong in our identity, it doesn't matter. We don't feel unsafe.
Right.
And that's one of the big outcomes for people in our Strength and Dignity course is, you know, let's solidify who we are in Christ so that all this stuff that people throw at us bounces off. Like we don't even pick it up. And that is a thing. We can create safety for ourselves when we work on our identity and we know who we are in Christ. We can create, so that's the baseline. Like you got to get that down before you can do anything else. Everybody's focused on, I need to change my husband or I need to change my wife. Their behavior is XYZ. Yeah, no, stop looking at that. Look at yourself, right? So once you get your identity solid, then you can level up into being protective for the relationship. You can have enough knowledge of what's good in a relationship, and then you can put boundaries in the relationship. So you have boundaries on yourself first. You know your identity. That's all part of that work. And then you can put boundaries out there around the relationship of what is and isn't good in the relationship for the now that it's in. And so that's not putting a boundary on your spouse. That's saying what you will and won't participate in, because boundaries are for us and they're safety equipment, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I hear is safety can be triggered internally or externally. And if the goal is to create a safe environment, the work that needs to be done first is the internal work before you can even address the external. Because what I'm thinking when I hear and I imagine these scenarios that we all have, somebody needs to have awareness.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, that's a hard thing to achieve when you're triggered, whether it's your own stuff or if the person is triggering you with what they're saying. You know, it's somebody's got to stop, drop, and roll and say, wait a minute, you know.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, what's happening? I feel unsafe. And then have the awareness to say or understand, is it me or is it the situation? And then be able to speak to it. I mean, that's a lot of steps in a heated moment. So, I mean, if you're able to get there, bravo, because a lot's happening if somebody's chasing you around the room and you're trying to get to safety and they're trying to get to safety, it can be a disaster.
Yeah, it is. And you bring up a really, really good point. So when things are happening fast,
yeah,
half the time safety's out the window. So the first thing that we need to learn to do is it's a boundary for ourselves. I don't have conversation when I'm emotional. So that means I'm going to take a break here. That's level one. Level two is we don't have conversation when someone is emotional. And so whoever's doing whatever, doesn't matter. Then it's, hey, I love you. And I want to work through this. And I want to do it when we can both be calm. Let's take a half hour and just go pray about it. Work through this thing we call the steps, right? Where you walk through your emotions with the Lord and then learn what's true, that self-awareness process, right? And who am I listening to? Am I listening to the enemy? You know, right. Maybe like, no kidding. And then come back to it where we can behave like an actual grown-up and navigate. And you know, being a creator of safety for other people is a thing. We cannot do that when we need something from somebody else. Oof. Yeah, oof. So if I'm getting triggered, that's mine to deal with. It's not because let's say I'm in a room with you and you've had, that blew up real fast there. I was going to say, and we're married, but wait, no. So let's say a couple is working through this thing, and you know, one of them has a porn addiction and they're on the laptop and the other person sees it and they get triggered because the other person's on a laptop. Yeah. Or on their phone. Like, this is stuff we see all the time in couples, is somebody sees somebody on an electronic device and they get triggered. And the person may just be like buying Christmas gifts, like, no joke. I mean, who knows what they're actually doing. Right. But the triggering is happening within me. Right. And so it's controlling behavior for me to say, well, you can't be on your laptop in front of me. Oh, yeah. That's a thing. You know, you can't, I don't want to see you on your phone ever. Like, no, I need to work out what is it in me that's this insecure, because that's a part of daily life now. You know, reading the news, it comes off my phone. I don't know anybody that gets a paper newspaper anymore, which is really sad, by the way. But we have to look at what's happening within us first, deal with it, and then we can navigate other people's behavior. So if you've got somebody that's, say, critical in their communication, right? And let's say a typical dinner situation. So it doesn't matter which spouse made dinner, put some effort into it, made a nice dinner, and the spouse eats the dinner, doesn't say thank you, drop dead, nothing, just gets up and goes, you know, to the other room and starts, you know, scrolling through stuff on their phone. It's like, okay, well, what do we do with that? Well, there's a lot of ways you can approach that verbally. And you can do it in a way that creates an unsafe environment where you go in and it's like, I did all this for you and here you are again, you know. Oh yeah, that's going to build safety. Yeah, no. So what would it be? Hey, do you mind coming and helping me put the dishes away and cleaning up and taking care of all of that and giving the benefit of the doubt? And hey, what'd you think of dinner? Oh, it was good. Oh, well, good. Thanks for letting me know. You know, that's it. Right. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who's like, oh, I can't believe your mashed potatoes are always so mushy. Well, you know what, sweetheart, you're more than welcome to make them yourself next time. You know, like, I'm not going to own that. Right. Yeah. And so when criticism is handed to us, it's our choice whether to pick it up and take it. Yeah. So, but the less secure we are, the less safe our environment is going to be. No matter what, you could live inside Fort Knox. Wow. And you're not going to feel safe if your identity is not solid, because other people's opinions will affect you way too much.
Wow, that's so good. Okay, so it's very clear that we have to have safety within our identity in Christ. That is absolutely necessary, number one, before we do anything else. Now, in moving into relationships that are safe and how to cultivate that, I know that one of the things that we teach at Greater Impact is identifying relationships in our lives where we feel most safe. That's an exercise you do at the conference. And it's always eye-opening to me when I identify people in my life where the relationship is easy and it's safe and I trust them. And it seems that they're very characteristic, you know, and when you start to look at them, they're pretty consistent, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if there's a what to say to help cultivate those type of relationships with intention.
Yes.
So maybe it's not a bad relationship, maybe it's not an unsafe relationship, but maybe there's opportunity to build safety. What are some things that our listeners can say that maybe would build that?
This is such a great topic, because the more I do this work, the more I find that people just don't have friends. They don't have these things. And these safe relationships are things that we need to cultivate. You're absolutely right. Jesus himself had 3 dudes he took everywhere with him, and they were lame sometimes, but he still took them, right? So if he needed that on planet Earth, like, so do we. So there's some research done by Dr. Brené Brown, and she's a genius in this department. And part of this is what not to say, and it's about building trust. So the key fact here is don't gossip. You might think that I'm going to bring you this juicy thing and you're going to feel like I'm, including you on the inside of some, no, now I don't trust you, because if you're going to tell me some secret about somebody else, I don't think I can trust you with any of my stuff, because you just betrayed somebody else's confidence. And now you're down a notch in my book. So gossip is don't do that. Don't talk about other people unless it's in a positive way. And Christian brothers and sisters, well, we just need to pray for so-and-so because they're dealing with XYZ. Like, no, unless they've said, ask for prayer for me. Absolutely. That's not your story to tell.
Yeah.
It's gossip covered with prayer requests. Don't do that. So that's a what not to say. Then there is a what to say around your own stuff. So for me to be in a relationship with somebody and have it be, and I've got some amazing, safe relationships. And I'm thinking of a woman on our executive team. She's amazing. There's zero judgment. So when it doesn't matter, like, I've never done this, but let's say I became a serial killer and I killed everybody, that I could probably go tell her that, and she'd be like, okay, so you did this thing and you were feeling and she would validate whatever it is, horrible thing that I told her. And then she'd be like, all right, so what do you think you need to do now?
Yeah.
What do you think God wants you? I mean, she's legit. She listens, she validates. And then on top of that, she shares her stuff too. So it's not this one-way street thing, because that's a thing that is huge. When you have both people being transparent. So when you say, what do you say? Well, you say what you're dealing with that's real, with people that have shared some real reality with you about them.
Yeah.
You don't withhold your true self with them. Now you gotta be careful, because you can't do that with too many people.
Right.
But you got to be transparent. The other piece of this, and this is one of the things I love about everybody on our leadership team and my really good friends, we tell the truth, even when it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we keep short accounts. And so if somebody hurts somebody's feelings, there's a conversation around that. And there's honesty in it. I hurt somebody's feelings on our team. I don't know when it was, sometime in the last year or something. And they came to me and they said, I don't like how you do this. It bothers me. It makes me feel XYZ. I'm like, so you're telling me, and I validated their experience. And they were like, yeah. And I said, well, I really appreciate you telling me this. And I can't do anything about that. I hate to tell you this, but this is how this is. And I don't have the energy or the skill set to change it. If you want to take a look at it, have at it. But I can't do anything any different with it. And I'm sorry. I get that it's a problem for you. But if you want to come up with solutions, I'll look at them. Absolutely. And I'm sorry this is a headache for you, but I can't do anything about it. So we were honest, right?
Yeah.
We validate, we don't argue. Well, you shouldn't think that way. Like, well, but they do. That's reality. Like, stop arguing with reality.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
short accounts, telling the truth matters.
And I love that even if it's not the response that we want, um, just the fact that you're able to tell the truth, it's an honest answer actually adds to the safety in the relationship. And I think that's so important because so many times we expect the feel good relationships to basically make us feel good. And that's not an honest relationship if you're only being told what you want to hear all the time. I think some of the safest relationships are with people, like you said, that can tell us the truth and where we can be honest and open and tell them our yucky stuff and know there will be no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that because that's important. That's very important. Okay. So lots of insight here. Is there anything else you want to add around this topic that is probably going to haunt us until we go to heaven?
I know, right? Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. This whole tell the truth thing, we don't, that's a hard concept to get, because what truth are you telling? And before we can tell the truth, we need to first stop lying. That comes before telling the truth. So what that means is when, somebody asks me, well, are you okay? And I'm not, I don't say, yeah, I'm all right. No, I'm fine. I'm all right. I don't lie.
Yeah.
If somebody says, can you do this? Yeah, I can do that. And I'm not going to, I can do that. I can't make this happen in my life right now without causing myself too much stress. Right. So I'm going to stop lying first. That's the place we start when we're thinking about how do I get more truth in my life. And then the next place is, all right, so what is true? Like, just because I'm feeling an emotion based on what you said to me or did doesn't mean that I should tell you that. I need to go figure out what that's about with the Lord first, because otherwise I'm just bringing my negative emotions to you as if you're supposed to fix them. It's like, well, no, if I'm upset by something, well, why am I upset by that? Like, Lord, what's that about in me? And then maybe it is something that the other person did that was unkind or inconsiderate or whatever. And then, but I'm going to process that within me, because the last thing I want to do is blame somebody and make them the solution to a problem that I have. That's victim mentality. And when we can look at ourselves and first, always, and go, okay, I'm hurting. Why am I hurting? Well, they just ran over your dog. Okay, fair enough. So I'm missing my dog. Okay, that pain is real. That's absolutely true. Why else am I hurting? Well, maybe I left the dog out and maybe I feel guilt. Maybe I feel responsible. Okay, I need to face that in myself, because it's so much easier to blame somebody else.
Yeah. Wow. So really, there's no excuse. I feel like we say the same thing on every episode. If we really do the work, if we really understand what our triggers are, if we really understand our emotions and where they come from, really nothing externally can rattle us. So the what to say is, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Really?
I really believe I'm responsible for creating safety for myself.
Yeah.
And leaders are responsible for creating safety for others.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you for that. This was fun today. So lots of goodies. If I could just quickly summarize today's topic around safety. If you are feeling unsafe or you notice there's a lack of safety at all in your relationship, ask yourself, is there a boundary that you need? Do you need to clean up your side of the street? If the other person is feeling unsafe, ask yourself, am I creating safety? Am I using abusive language? Is there labeling or anything damaging that I've said that may be contributing to this? And then ultimately know that you're responsible, as Nina just said, for your own safety, just as that other person is responsible for their safety. We can't have a conversation around this until we check ourselves first. So there's no use in chasing anyone out of the door or running away until you really do your work first. So once we do that, then we can think about facilitating safety in the relationship. And just some tips around that. Make sure you're not talking and gossiping around others and doing things that are not positive, saying things that are negative. If you share your stuff, make sure it's with a safe person, and tell the truth, even when it's hard. Something that we do here at Greater Impact. We tell the truth and keep short accounts. Please tell the truth and not lie. If you're asked, are you okay? That's something we have to be aware of. We do it so easily where we just say, I'm fine. And sometimes that's not true. So tell the truth and really know if you're okay or not. And then lastly, check your emotions. We do the steps here frequently. Even the best of us can get triggered. So make sure you're constantly checking yourself if you're triggered in any unsafe situation. So hopefully today you've been empowered and we're able to help you cultivate a safe relationship, whether it's at home, work, or church, or just with yourself. So thank you for joining. We pray that it was helpful. Check out our next episode. And if you have time, like this video and subscribe so that you'll be the first to know when our videos are aired. Enjoy your day. Thanks for joining.